Hi, my name is Kurt Rix, and this is my Building Leadership Practicum e-portfolio presentation. Before I get too much into my last couple of years of experience as an administrator, a little bit about myself beforehand. I come from Chico, California, which is north of San Francisco. I was a teacher for 20 years in public education, the first 10 in an alternative education setting, dealing with troubled youth, and the last 10 in a quite affluent middle school and high school, where I was exposed to quite a different reality. All right, about 5 years ago, well, almost exactly 5 years ago, I took the leap into international education, retiring, I suppose, from California education and becoming an international school teacher in Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan. After 2 years in Kyrgyzstan as a fourth and fifth grade teacher, I made the transition to administration. That was spearheaded by my presenting at a regional professional development that was overseen by a few administrators in the system, and I was given a surprise invitation to become an administrator shortly thereafter. At that point, I moved to Chengdu, China, where I live now. Chengdu is in central China, known most for the panda base, where most of the pandas in the world are born and raised. Chengdu is pretty remote from a geographic standpoint. I'm about a 4-hour flight to Hong Kong and about a 3.5-hour flight to Thailand. All right. Once here, I became the director of instruction, which is probably closest somewhere between a vice principal and principal. My responsibilities were pretty much whole campus. I do have a director who would serve more like a superintendent of our entire school, but I was pretty much on my own when it came to running the elementary building. You can see some of the bullets there of things I was responsible for. Some highlights within that list: supervision, meaning supervision of all observations and evaluations of all of our staff. That was around 20 staff members that I was responsible for observing and evaluating, seeing to their professional growth program as they went through. Supervision here becomes challenging. We're a transient community, meaning many of our teachers only stay with us for 2 or 3 years. In the time that I've been here, 3 years, they've seen more come and go than have stayed. So it's quite something to orient people in such fast order. All right, also on that list, you can see professional development. Professional development was my responsibility to organize with our administrative team. We do 6 days a summer of professional development for all of our staff, and then 3 days during the school year of continued professional development. We get to choose our own focus based on QSI's expectations and QSI's ideological path. Among the professional development activities we have done in my time here, our first year was dedicated to project-based learning. We have integrated a project-based learning curriculum into our curriculum. That included hiring an outside consultant to come and visit us twice that year and train all of our teachers and administrators. Also on there, you'll see special needs program. I'm quite proud of our special needs program. In my 2+ years here, we have gone from having one special needs student who was identified as such. There's no such thing as one special needs student, but and that student's only services that were being provided upon my arrival was a one-on-one aide that was following them from class to class with no special needs training or experience. Now we have a special needs hired teacher who works with around 6 of our students. She is able to work with some on a one-to-one basis, some on a push-in the class basis, some on a pull-out in small group basis, all very much drawing on her expertise as a special needs teacher from the United States. The bottom 2 there probably stood out about my experiences overseas and my first experience as an administrator here. Chengdu is a city of about 15 million people, larger than most of us can even process. We offer door-to-door bus service for all of our students. We offer 3 afternoon buses for all ages, 5 years old and up. It sounds like a wonderful thing to offer parents, but from my desk, it is my biggest challenge, or at least it was my biggest challenge when I was in the elementary building. The pressure you would feel to make a non-English speaking student safely arrive home to a non-English speaking parent with a non-English or their language speaking bus driver in a community that is unbelievably large, was probably my biggest stress, and certainly the amount of supervision that struck me the most. A close second was preschool. We have about 120 students in our elementary building. Our elementary building is around 250 students. And it was new to me. Developing a preschool program that when I arrived was fairly disorganized was a point of pride for me. And I feel like I've learned more than I ever wanted to learn. If you have any questions about chickenpox or foot and mouth disease, or what a lunch menu should look like for a preschooler, or really what the definition of potty training is, I am your guy. Feel free to reach out to me. Here are a few of our elementary activities that stuck out in my mind, whether it be our spelling bee that we have won for the international school community here in Chengdu 3 years running, or our International Day, which I think we had 40 different flags flown from our different students' nationalities this last year. You can see that China is prominent in our international program. We make it a very important that our host country is a big part of what we do. All right, I'm going to skip ahead to district experiences. We really have district experiences on two different levels here in QSI. First and foremost, we are beholden to Quality Schools International and their reliance on a mastery learning approach toward instruction and assessment, leveling students based on their level, not based on our teaching levels, not based on our program, but instead individualizing instruction, differentiating instruction to fit those in need of more and those more attention and those in need of more enrichment. To do so, we rely on the fact that we have small class sizes, usually 10 to 15 students, and we have quality teachers. To do that, we are trained once a year. I go to Seattle for a week, where all of our administrators meet up and go through extensive training into all the aspects of a QSI education, whether it be in the areas of finance or professional development. Intensive English, special needs has now become something that even 3 years ago wasn't a topic, and mastery learning, of course. Now that's part of our district, but as I mentioned earlier, our school itself is kind of a district in its own. We do have an advisory board. An advisory board is different than a PTSO or a PTA board. Our advisory board, they are not simply, we'll take any volunteer situation. We seek out certain members of our expat community to be our advisory board. They have quite a bit of advisory control over how our individual school runs. We can do things differently than the other QSIs on many levels, and our advisory board is a big part of that. I have been an active part of our advisory board process since becoming an administrator. Also, in terms of recruitment and interviewing, we're in a curious place as an international school that is also a large organization. I was not hired by the site that I am now on. I was hired by a human resources person back in the United States who placed me at this school. My administrator had never met or spoken to me before I was hired. And because of that, many of the people who come here to work with me, I didn't hire. I've met very few of them. They come to me and I am then responsible for their supervision. But all QSI administrators are responsible for a certain amount of recruitment and interviewing. Every QSI hire must be interviewed in person at some point somewhere. And since not all of us are from Chico, California, we are a far-flung organization, and I am responsible for interviewing many people who are sent my way, and I have been flown to other countries just for the sake of interviewing people who were not even applying to my school, but to give my stamp of approval as a potential QSI employee somewhere in the world. It is probably the closest thing to a human resources experience I've had in QSI. In terms of additional district experiences, we are one of 4 schools in QSI that are an IB diploma program school. And I have been trained as an IB diploma program administrator. I've worked with the other administrators district-wide on curriculum development and modifying our QSI curriculum to fit an IB diploma program curriculum. And those are ongoing processes that have to, fit with the changes of both. I have also served as the athletic director for our entire school, because we offer athletics throughout the community for ages 4 and up. Our students are involved in different athletics or different intramural activities that is much more similar to a district level activity than it is just site athletics. All right. I am now, and have been since probably last June 20th, the last day of our school year last year, the secondary director of instruction. Moving to the secondary building was something I looked forward to. Many of our schools in QSI are not as large as the one we're in. We're at about 370 students. Most of ours are instead in the area of 80 or 90 students. Chengdu offers the option for a director like me to be able to see the whole experience, whether from 5-year-old to a college-bound senior. And this was my first chance to really become part of that. I already mentioned being the diploma program administrator. In addition to the district level requirements of that, I am responsible for making sure that our school, our students who are our IB kids, are prepared to receive their IB diploma and prepared to take their exams and prepared to go into university life with that IB seal of approval. Also, I have been responsible for moving into a new building. We began moving on June 20th into our new building here. I was responsible, even going back well into last winter, for making sure that this new building was as best could be made an American-style high school. We occupy 3 floors of a 21-floor high-rise here in Chengdu, and it's been my job from the ideas to the drawings to the hiring of the contractors to the daily supervision. I did not go back to the United States this summer. I stayed here to make sure things were ready to go, and our new building has opened. It was more of a learning experience than maybe anything I've ever done that wasn't specific to the classroom. I'm very proud of the building that we have, although I would love to have a chance to do it over, because every mistake I've made seems to bother me more than any, and I hope I get a chance to do it again. One of the bullets on here you'll see is scheduling. Scheduling at a secondary level is quite a challenge compared to scheduling at the elementary level. I like to say that our students here at QSI Chengdu there's everything for them to do. They can play all the sports, they can take all the classes, they can do all the activities, but almost all of them have to do all of them for all of them to work. Because of that, scheduling, working with our staff, working with our students, making sure that everyone is getting all the services they need to move out into the world upon graduating is a very big challenge, and something I take great pride in being able to do, and appreciate the opportunity that QSI has given me to do it. Student discipline I highlighted on there. I have to admit I missed it. Having been in an alternative education campus where so much of it was about behavior modification, student discipline strategies, managing behaviors that were counterproductive to learning, I am glad to be in a situation where I can put some of those skills to use. Professional development, I already mentioned. Event coordinator is a big one for QSI. We are the center of our expat culture here, where our children, go home to large high-rise apartment buildings where they may speak the language of very few people there. Our children stay late into the day. Our parents come here for activities, and we are responsible for coming up with and designing and maintaining a lot of events that bring our community together. You can see some of our secondary experiences that I've been a part of there. You can see our finished auditorium and our in-process auditorium there is in one of those pictures, and our plans that I worked with our architects to design. Also, professional development is an ongoing thing. We have now transitioned, now that I've come to the high school, to make PLCs an emphasis of our professional development. As I mentioned earlier, we're a transient staff, which means our leaders move on. Our teacher leaders, and I believe it's become a focus of us to get better at making sure there's another leader right behind them. So we've hired a consulting firm, gentleman, Steve Barkley, to work with us on our professional development of PLCs. All right. In my last minute that I have before the 15-minute bell rings, I would like to talk a little bit about my experiences in the Fort Hays State program. Of all the things that I did in the Fort Hays State program, I liked the in-basket activities that were in some of the courses the most. It most mirrored my day. In fact, almost every day of mine is an in-basket activity. And I wish that every class had them, and now that I've had the opportunity to do them with you and the opportunity to do them daily, I think it is supremely valuable. The observation tool, I continue to modify mine, I continue to use mine, I appreciate the opportunity to make one. Technology, you can see I hate Google on there. Moving to China was traumatic for a Fort Hays experience. China does not like Google, China does not allow YouTube, China did not like Blackboard. It has been a challenge, and even posting this very PowerPoint will be a challenge. The case studies were wonderful, and the standards have been what has directed much of what I've done since. I've actually categorized folders on my computer, I've categorized my emails, based on each standard category. They really have held